Welcome to another video. Hope you guys are doing well. In this video, we're going to be looking at the fundamentals of wave management, specifically in the mid lane, under the concept of wave opening based on champion archetype. So when I say archetype, what I'm referring to are categories that we can put champions into so that it's very easy to know who we have to open against and how we should open against them. So in this first example, we're going to be taking a look at Victor. Victor is going to be classified as a mid-ranged mage when it comes to categorizing him. The reason for that is because he, although isn't as weak when it comes to wave management or controlling the wave level 1 against other champions like a Fizz or something else that simply can't even touch the wave, instead he can still influence the wave and get push leads, however, not in comparison to perhaps something like an Orianna or like a Xerath. So he's more mid than he is low. And so when a mid-ranged mage goes ahead and plays against a archetype that's a lot higher in influence, then the best option to the wave is to shove. Level 1, you can start getting a push lead early on the wave. As you can see, this is exactly what Victor does. The reason for this is because if you don't respond to the wave, if you don't hit the wave level 1, the champion that has complete control of the lane, Orianna in this case, will be able to influence wave 1, will be able to control wave 2 and 3. And in doing so, you're going to start losing out leverage in the lane. In this case, Victor goes ahead and he shoots some autos into the wave. Only walks up when he has the Q up, otherwise looking to bait out the Orianna. Takes a bit of a heavy trade. As you can see, he's using the wave clear that he has, which again is not completely that low, to gain level advantages and to retain himself inside of the lane by constantly throwing out Qs. Victor's lane is very strong. This is why Victor is classified more as a mid-range champion than something that is low-ranged, because of how strong Victor's lane could actually be. Please be aware, but when I talk about archetypes, I'm putting them in low, medium, high based on how much they can influence the wave. So if I mention one champion has low influence, we know where he's placed versus a champion that I could deem as high influence. So in this case, as Victor, who's a mid-ranged champion who can influence the wave not as strongly as something like Xerath or Vel'Koz, will still be able to compete in the lane against certain other champions. However, in order to do so, has to start pushing on wave 1. Getting a small push lead would be the goal. Now, a lot of my videos, I talk about push leads. In this case, Victor into Fizz is not a lane where you want to get an immediate push lead. You can, but that only depends if you need it. If you can't utilize your push, then you don't need to make a push happen. But because you have the ability and authority on the wave, doesn't always mean that you should just be able to exercise it by shoving in the wave. You only push the lane if you need to push the lane. If you don't have to push the lane, it's better to play lane next to your tower because it's just common safety. And so, because this is an opening where we don't want to immediately hit the wave, Victor goes ahead and just chills out and sees if he can get something on Raptors. This is quite an older game. And so, doesn't find it, and then goes ahead and now slow pushes the lane. If you're playing as the Fizz, you don't want to start running up to the wave and start auto-attacking it, because you don't have any influence on wave 1. Even if you get a push lead, you'll lose all your HP doing so, and you won't be able to crash the second wave in time. And on top of that, you'll be permanently stuck in the lane for wave 3, wave 4, and then however until you need to be broken out of it. Moving forward into the next example, we're going to be looking at Twisted Fate, one of my personal favorites. And Twisted Fate can be categorized as a mid-ranged champion, a champion that has relatively moderate influence, not insanely high in comparison to other champions that can hard shove him in. However, it doesn't necessarily have no push power either. He can generate push leads against certain champions. Now, when a mid-range champion is versus another mid-ranged champion, and especially a champion as weak as Veigar, then what you can do is you don't have to immediately start shoving the lane in. You have authority to simply be patient, and if you need to shove the wave, you can. The reason why we have leverage here is because Twisted Fate level 1 does have higher range than the Vigar. Any champion with higher wave clear is going to have more authority and will have leverage. However, that leverage doesn't have to be constantly used unless a push is needed. Now, in this case, a push isn't necessarily needed because Graves seems like he'll be out after red buff as we look in the minimap. However, if you're playing this matchup and your jungler is invading and he wants to run into the enemy jungle for whatever reason, then you can gain prio. However, if you're against a champion with very high amounts of wave clear, you're gonna have a lot of trouble. And so as you can see, the lane opens and we don't immediately push. And this is very apparent because we're not in the lane pushing immediately, and therefore because we enter the lane a little bit later, one, it entices the opposing player to push. And if they end up pushing, then they might become susceptible to a long lane, which can mean a lot of different things. And so you don't have to immediately stays in the wave and gets the wave to actually slightly pull into him. It's just trading here. Missing the next auto with the E, but that's okay. So let's move on to the next example. In this next example, we're going to be taking a look at another mid-ranged mage, Victor, against a mid to low-ranged mage, Vladimir. Vlad actually has much lower range than Victor on the wave because he only has autos and Q. And Victor is able to pull waves because he's able to get the Q off, which means he can generate aggro, accelerating his push when necessary. Not to mention, he does get E level 2, and he is able to just crash the wave faster than Vlad. Now, because this is the case, he doesn't need to hard shove the wave either. Vlad, however, can get influence on a wave against a champion like, for example, Zed, or for example, a champion like Fizz, or a champion like Kiana. These champions aren't able to touch the wave unless they want to get autoed. For Vladimir, he has leverage in those matchups. In a Victor-Vlad matchup at level 1 and 2, Victor has complete authority of the lane. However, again, just a reminder, just because you have influence in the lane doesn't mean you need to exercise it every single time. And if you are going to play a lane quickly, you have to have reason for it. This is going to be the last example. This example is a... It's going to be Twisted Fate as a... Every time I see Action, I just want to die inside. This is a mid-range champion, Twisted Fate, against a champion that is what I would put into as obnoxious tier. And this is where like most ADCs goes. Like this is where the Tristana mids come in. This is where the Akshan players creep in. This is where Kai'Sa mid comes in against certain matchups that can't really do anything to her. Varus, another one that's quite obnoxious. Against these champions, you'll have a lot of trouble because even if you're a mid-ranged mage, or you're even unfortunately, hopefully you're not like a Fizz or a Kiana or something, but if you are, again, you have absolutely zero influence. And if you're, degrading yourself enough to play ADCs in the mid lane, which is completely fine and I accept, then again, you have complete authority in the lane, and you shouldn't just be abusing it if you don't need the push. Okay, that is it for this video. I will see you guys for the next one. Take care.